It is almost time for the grand finals, but we still have 2 more slots to fill, and they will be filled today. Hey everybody, welcome to day number 8. Let's meet the first... Oh! Apparently, we have several cars that will be in this race, but the ones that don't have a specific name attached will not be able to win the fall tournament. Number 44 has 34.45 grams. Number 59 has 30.31 grams. Number 19 is Numbskull. He's back at 112.01 grams. Number 61 is another RAF at 38.66 grams. And Numbskull is back. I'm not sure entirely what the weight limit is on some of these vehicles, but apparently that's allowed because Numbskull's here. And we've seen Numbskull race before, and they're back again, this time with the dry bones in a really stacked vehicle. Both figuratively and definitely literally. And all the RAFs are represented by Despicable Me characters for some reason. But even if they aren't allowed to win the full tournament, it may not matter for those 3 because Numbskull is already out in front and so far has had nobody catch up to them, and they finish in first. If they move on... Actually, now that I think about it, it did say 7 racers would be RAF, and there's only 3 here. That means the entire group, after this one today, will be RAF vehicles. So that means one of the racers in the grand finals won't even be able to win the whole thing. That is an absolute shock to me. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. But Numbskull is basically all on their own right now. And so far they're doing well because they did finish in first. So let's see if they can keep that up. The Minions and Gru are trying to catch him. So far unable to do so. You can see that Minion trying to eye him on the way down. And they get through the lane merges around the same time, but Numbskull is way out in front. That Minion is trying to get closer. It looked like he was starting to. But it looks like all that progress was lost. In fact, I don't even see them anymore. And Numbskull finishes in first again. And the other 3 racers are where? Well, there's one of them. It looks like it's Gru. But the other 2, nowhere to be seen. One of them stopped sideways on a level up before the last, and the other one got stopped right before the last turn. So Numbskull is currently doing well, and I will say this, ladies and gentlemen, Numbskull is the only racer out of this entire video who has a chance to win the entire thing because they are an actual racer representing an actual person, whereas any of these other racers signify that someone did sign up but apparently did not send their racer in. So if for some reason Numbskull does not move on, I want everyone to put a comment under this video saying justice for Numbskull. But for now we may not have to do that because Numbskull is out in front once more, and if they finish now, then they will move on automatically, and they do. And they don't have much competition at all from these Despicable Me characters whatsoever. In fact, where are they? I know one of them just finished, but where are the other 2? Well, here comes one of them. It looks like it's Gru. But I don't think everybody's going to finish. Nope, it looks like that same one got stuck around a similar spot, just on the opposite side of the track. So let's look at the score totals now. We know Numbskull will be moving on. But who has the best chance of joining them is the real question right now. This is definitely an unusual situation. I'm kind of at a loss for words regarding what's going on. Right now, the best one to have a chance to move on is one of the minions. I want to say it's the one with the snorkel. But Gru is only 1 point behind them, so it could be either one of them. Whereas the one with the blue hat, they've only finished once, so it's not looking good for them at all. But Numbskull is trying to stay undefeated, which honestly, in this particular scenario, I say he deserves to be. And he keeps on going, trying to stay away from those RAFs. And they finish in first, so not only is Numbskull moving on and knocking out at least 2 of those RAF racers, but he also has the privilege of going into the finals undefeated, something a few racers have had, but only 3 up to this point have stayed undefeated afterwards. That means there will be 1 RAF vehicle joining him, and at least he'll have to race at least 2 more, depending on who does well in the second group, which we will get introduced to right now. But they are all RAFs. The first one is at 42.53 grams. Number 64 is at 91.48 grams. Love the design of that one. Number 28 is at 31.54 grams. Number 24 is at 31.66 grams. 3 of them are minions, but that other one is a toad, which makes you wonder, how is that one in RAF, but still seems like it was customized and sent in by somebody. I'm not sure what the technicalities are of that. I'm not the head honcho of Races and Fun. I'm just the commentator. But that toad is out in front, and they have a similar design to Koopa Dragster, who had a stretched out vehicle like that with a couple engines, and the character sits in the back of the vehicle. But it is working out for them, and they finish in first. Now, I'm not sure what to think of this group, though, because if all 4 of them are RAF, that means none of them will be allowed to win the overall tournament. So part of me even wonders, why have them race? I guess just to throw a curveball into the mix, I guess, if nothing else. Because at least one will be in the grand finals, since only 1 racer today was represented by an actual person. But the Toad is out in front with a first place finish so far. I'm noticing there's a lot of blue and yellow, partly through the minions, partly through the vehicles. But the Toad RAF is out in front once again, and the other 3 are staying relatively close together. Around that first turn, they're trying to catch him, but Toad is pulling away. And now we're in the lane mergers, and Toad's lead just gradually keeps expanding. And now the other 3 racers are pretty much off camera, and they seem to be getting slower and slower, whereas Toad seems to be at least maintaining most of their speed. And they go into that last dip, and they win once more. In the other 3, here's at least one of them. We have the one in the sneaker finishing, and here's the rest to follow suit. Now, I'm apologizing if my commentary isn't the greatest right now. I'm just a little bit confused, because this is quite the unusual scenario we're in. A bunch of minions, Gru and Toad, and none of them will be allowed to win the overall tournament. Granted, only 1 out of those 7 will be moving on, but it's definitely strange. I mean, I guess 2 of them could move on if 2 of them beat Numbskull, but Numbskull so far hasn't lost a race against any of them, and I'm sure he would like to keep that upheld. And quite frankly, so do I in this particular case. But here comes Toad again. It looks like one racer is relatively close to them this time. But now as they get into the final turn, that doesn't mean much because the lead is pretty much expanding as the race progresses. And that Toad will be in today's finals against Numbskull. And the other racers are trying to keep this at least a relatively close competition, but it's hard to do that when you know you can't actually win the overall thing. But that Toad finished with a 17.30. The fastest time we have is with Flip Gambino, who finished with a 14.09 in the last video. So if any one of these racers end up moving on, they will need to step up their game, because I know there are racers that are faster than some of these. Here we go into heat number 4. Toad is already moving on. And if he does stay undefeated all the way through today's finals, it'll definitely be an unusual circumstance, because that will mean we have 4, I believe, undefeated racers in the grand finals, but one of them really won't even matter. But if Numbskull does it, that means 4 racers in the grand finals will have a shot to stay undefeated. But even if the Toad is undefeated now, it doesn't mean much when it's an RAF. And all the racers I'm trying to say are going to finish. I don't think that one's going to count, however. I think you need to have at least the vast majority of your vehicle over the finish line. Or at least 1/2 of your wheels over the finish line, something like that. But that definitely is not going to count. Yeah, I am just kind of speechless right now. I've not really seen this happen too many times. I know I keep saying that, but that's just because it's true. It's not every day you see something like that. The sensor did go off, so I guess they're going to give it to them. But we do have 2 undefeated racers in today's finals, and thankfully one of them is Numbskull. The other is the Toad RAF. So let's see what happens here. I'm sure Numbskull would love to stay undefeated against all these RAFs, defeating every single one of them without any faults in there. And so far he is doing that, staying just in front of the Toad RAF, who's also undefeated. And all of a sudden Toad just loses so much speed, and Numbskull is on his own. If he can stay that way, then he will remain undefeated if he wins all the other races as well. What I am seeing, though, is that they are swerving a lot, which may not be too much of a problem right now, but it's definitely something to be careful of later on. And that minion did not finish. Meanwhile, Numbskull, the hero of the day, remains undefeated, dethroning the Toad RAF at the same time, and now just needs 3 more races and 3 more wins to stay undefeated going into the grand finals. Just 3 races remaining for Numbskull. To show our support, let's all say something supportive to Numbskull, because this is quite the unusual set of circumstances, and I'm sure Numbskull would not want to lose against racers who are essentially CPUs, for the lack of a better phrasing. But Numbskull so far is out in front yet again, and this time no one is anywhere close to them, even for most of the race. Not even Toad. And now Numbskull does finish in second once again. Toad tries to catch him, but it is meaningless. And the minions are far behind. One in the sneaker, and I'm not sure where the other one actually was. Oh, I guess they were not too far behind Toad. I guess I just missed him. But this time they finished with a 15.66. That is slightly better but they will need to step up the game at least a little bit, because other racers have finished at least a full second faster than that. But for now, Numbskull is the one to root for. Into race number 3, Numbskull just needs one more win to automatically be in the grand finals, and 2 more wins to stay undefeated, which will at least allow us to have 4 undefeated racers, and all 4 of them will have a shot at winning the whole thing. Which means a quarter of our racers that are in that tournament, or I am so sorry, in that next part of the tournament, they could stay undefeated. Only one of them obviously can do that, but Numbskull is already on their way. Meanwhile, this particular minion is stuck before the last turn. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are rooting for Numbskull right now to stay undefeated. Granted, at least one of them will move on. Right now, it's kind of between the minion with the snorkel and Toad. But Numbskull is guaranteed. They're just trying to stay undefeated now. Right now, they do have the edge, but Toad is not too far behind there. Granted, 2 or 3 turns in, Toad seems to lose a lot of their speed, which will be great for Numbskull. Into the lane mergers we go. And those 2 racers, Toad and I think that was the one with the snorkel, were fighting going into that lane merger, which slowed both of them down, allowing for Numbskull to go around that last turn with no competition, going down the dip, and they will stay undefeated going into the grand finals. One of these RAF racers will join him, but we know that that racer, whichever one it is, will not be able to win. Meanwhile, Numbskull still can. And I guess that one minion had enough, because by the time he got off the track, he jumped out of his vehicle. It'll be Toad joining him, so no minions in the grand finals. But now our whole lineup for the grand finals is set. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you at the start of the Ultimate Finals.